Welcome in the Conscious Union with God class, the last episode of this series, and the title of it is Mysticism. That's at least the title of the chapter that we use, and it's chapter 13. I'm really happy that you're here and that you're that you're able to come today and took time to continue our discovery of what Joel Goldsmith shares with us in the book Conscious Union with God. See, and it's not just what Joel shares with us, it's more what we start to recognize in ourselves. And that is where this is really great for, like it is all remembrance. It's like, yes, of course, I know that. That's why I recognize it as true. And that is what also makes this class, or this coming together of us, makes it really like a class with a common purpose. We all start to recognize this. We all recognize this as a remembrance of something that we already know, in fact. So to remember it again is really to activate it again in your life too. So that is what's so great about reading this and letting it come to life in yourself and starting to apply it. See, and mysticism might then be the subject of something that even sounds a bit misty or mysterious or something like that. But who knows what Joel will share with us in this hour that we are together. And it will definitely be demystifying in that sense. So we start in our meetings. We start with becoming really present here. That's why is that so important? Well, then you have contact with yourself, and that is important to come to the place where it's actually being received, where it actually is already communicating with you. And so that's why we take a moment just to relax first before we do anything, to sit back and maybe breathe for a couple of times or sigh. Just let it go. Let go of what happened a moment ago, and let go of what you think we're doing here, or let go of what your resistance to any of it might be, and let go of what you think is so important just a moment ago, or something that keeps concerning you for a long time. Let it go for now. You don't need it in this hour that we're together. So this is really a time, sacred time, used for the remembrance of us. So we're entering deeper into our consciousness. We're letting go, like I said, like we let go of ideas. We let go of what we think is so important, and actually make space for a second holy moment with ourselves, to enter into our inner being, into our inner life, into our inner plane, and become conscious of that. See, and it doesn't exclude anything. So it's also like meditation is also sitting in your chair, for instance, or standing, or however you meditate, and becoming totally present, feeling that your feet are on the ground, that you're sitting in a chair, and that your sit bones are touching the chair, and that you're surrounded by a certain space. And so you might even want to close your eyes to become conscious of that. Like, oh yeah, wait a minute, I'm just right here. And here is then also the place where I experience myself. So that's in a chair, putting my arms on the seat parts that are made for that. My arm rests. Feeling when I'm breathing that my body goes up and down, and starting to breathe through my nose and discovering certain smells, certain freshness of air. Also feeling that I'm actually calming down, that maybe my heart rate goes down a little bit. I'm feeling that I'm actually really liking this slowing down and breathing. And just being completely here with all that you feel. Maybe you have certain sensations in your body. Or certain, what you could call pains or whatever you feel. Feel that. Just let it be there. We're not trying not to feel it. No, this is you having your experience of yourself. So when we say we go inward, it is really like, okay, we go inside, yes. And we let go of thoughts that are connected to the world. We leave that behind for a moment. And see, that kingdom that we're looking for has nothing to do with this world. It is not of this world at all. See, and then we're actually entering into a frequency where we meet Jesus, if you want. Like Jesus taught us too. It's like, there's no, my kingdom is not of this world. No, so here we are in a space. It's actually a really peaceful space, isn't it? So, yeah, give it the space that it needs just by releasing some tension or sighing or releasing something that you don't even know what it is. Maybe a little strain in your neck that you can move your neck around a little bit or your head around a little bit. So, and slowly but certainly we're entering into a deeper layer of ourselves, where all the rest is still for a moment. So yeah, you feel that it has a certain rhythm. I can feel that going through my system. Like it has a certain rhythm too. That feels so good. See, immediately also you feel that there's light coming into your system. Can you feel that? See, and we're entering into the place where healing is natural, where this just occurs by being present here. See, and Joel taught us this too. It's like, it's amazing. He always brings us back, say, to the inner plane. That's where it has to be found. So yeah, here we are. So now present to receive whatever is given in our joint purpose in this class. See, and you know it has nothing to do with where you started this class, entering into an online classroom, so to speak. And see, it has nothing to do with that anymore. Suddenly we are in a whole different place that has nothing to do with this, world that we thought that we entered into. Okay, so today, chapter 13 from the book Conscious Union with God by Joel Goldsmith. And so I'm staying quite close to the scripture or to the book itself, just as a structure for this class, because the tendency for me to go and expand on a certain subject is right there. So for myself to bring it back to parts of the chapter makes it really relevant for this chapter in that sense. See, and I'm not Joel Goldsmith, but I recognize the topics that he's speaking about. I've a remembrance with that. I share experiences that Joel that Joel experienced too, just like you. You share certain experiences that Joel had too. And so when you start to read this book, suddenly something is like, yes, I know this. Oh, it is so great to be reminded of. Or, oh my God, I really get into an experience myself right now. By just listening to this, it's bringing me exactly to the place where I can actually receive this. That's really a miracle. That's totally amazing. It's totally amazing. So anything is possible is what I'm trying to say. So let this come to you, and we'll see what will happen. So Joel starts off with a definition of mysticism. And that's good to use that, why not? The true meaning of mysticism is any philosophy or religion that teaches oneness with God. Mysticism reveals the possibility of receiving impartations or guidance directly from God, of communing with God, of being consciously at one with God, and receiving good from God without any intermediary. And so the teaching of the infinite way is a mystical one because, above all things, its purpose is to achieve oneness with God. See, and what Joel means here, of course, is that achieving awareness of the oneness of God, because this oneness has always been there. Like, there is no separation. And so to be aware of oneness, or to be in an experience of oneness, is where this is about, is where the infinite way is leading you to. You know, any spiritual path, in fact, will bring you there. It's like, no, that is really great. There's a possibility of a direct communication with God. And that is actually occurring right now. It is actually occurring all the time. So there's no exception to it, unless you enter into a different part of your mind where you're distracted by worldly activities and all that, thinking that that is your reality, the world of form and the world of your five senses. So mysticism then is the definition of the possibility of oneness with God, and direct communication with God, God giving you guidance, God giving you everything, in fact. Because God is not just giving you guidance, God is giving you everything. That you are an extension of God. So mysticism is then really coming into the realization of that. And so that's not very misty, it's very concrete and clear. But see, in this, you'll see in this chapter 2, there's all kinds of sacrifices that you think that you have to make, temptations that will come to you in order for it to make you doubt that there can be such a thing. See, and one thing that you can be certain about is that this starts with your experience. Like, if mysticism is one thing, it is like there's no intermediary, like there's nothing in between. No direct contact with God is a direct contact with God. It is not via something, like it's not needing any other thing than you, and in the remembrance of your totality with God. Yeah, so that's good to know. So that's why we're talking about mysticism. So Joel wrote a couple of books regarding mysticism, so the practicality of mysticism. So I can really not recall all the titles, but it is like in many talks it came to you, the mystical eye, of course. So the mystical eye is also like a beautiful book, collection of talks, in which he all brings this into your awareness. And it's a really great series too, the Mystical Eye series. Like on YouTube, you can watch all of them. And that is like really great to dive deeper into this. Okay, yes, because of its subtlety, it is so close to you that you really have to discover what it is. This the same as a gray area that you cannot see in yourself, like a spot that you really are not aware of, that is actually occurring, or that you actually are performing in a certain way, but you can't see yourself. That's the same with the direct communication with God. It's like it is subtle in the sense that for you to enter into it, you really think that something is necessary while it's so close to you, like closer than breathing, that it's really given to you. But there's a way to it. And so that's what we're talking about today too, to show you some of these things that are really important to remember in remembering in coming into the, say, direct communication with God. Okay, like I said, I'll stay close to the text. So on page 191, Joel brings back one of the Bible quotes that has to do with this. Listen. All that the Father has is mine, because we are one. There is no separation between God and man. God and man are one. I and the Father are one. All that the Father has is right here, where I am. Joel says here, if I can achieve that realization, if I can obtain that inner sense of peace that we call the click, very quickly I will find that my, in this case, like transportation to Los Angeles appears. He's connecting this direct communication with God to, say, the practicality of every day. And I love to go into that because he explains it with certain examples, and I think that's great that he brings that in as an idea. See, I personally have experiences with that too, that I want to share with you too, in the sense of how they are manifesting. So not, say, especially not to get into the idea of reciprocity or thinking that God is, because you're in great communication, direct communication, now God is pleasing you with a certain gift or something. Like when you do your lesson well, you get the result. You will get something too, like a little present. So I don't want to get into that kind of thinking. And it's quite difficult to read it through this. Joel doesn't mean it like that, but it can be confused with it. So to take that away, I want to bring in another, say, aspect of how to look at this. Because, see, if you see that the direct communication that is given you, and you can experience that, seeing how your daily life is manifesting itself, coming from this, say you had a beautiful experience of oneness. Now 5 minutes further from that, suddenly you are back into like a setup where you are in your daily activities. And you can even run into a conflict already. Not that that's necessary, but it can be. So then where's your conscious experience of oneness? It seems like that it has nothing to do with your daily life. And that's not completely true at all. But it's just different. So in our daily activities, because I think that's where the most of the confusion comes from. In your daily activities, you get the reflections of what you are seeing. The reflections. So the things manifesting in form, if you want, that's as if it is a real form and it has solidity, which is not the case, is confusing them because it is a reflection. It can change any time, and it does change all the time. So this is where we see that if you think that there's a world of form, then you believe that and you make that real and you seem to function in it. But it becomes like a solid place where you have forms, where you navigate, where you have a certain location, and where you've, like a real, say, Newtonian physics world, where if you drop a stone, it will fall down, and if you put your toe under it, you would hurt yourself. That kind of world. It's like all these steps. And so maybe I should start with this. Why am I sharing it with you this into detail? It is because like literally the basics of healing are connected to it. If I think that there's something solid, for instance, to my body, and it is a static, self-functioning thing, that has its own mind and can do things by itself, then I will not experience the healing that is possible, because it literally is set in a whole form, in a solidity, in a thing with laws that operate in that construct that you made of yourself. I know I'm going really deep into it, so it's not about explaining all this, but it can be helpful to discover, like, oh my God, yes, of course, that's the difference. That's the only reason why I share this. So to see then the world that you perceive as a reflection of your thinking, instead of a solid factor, so to speak, makes it for you possible to bring it back, to bring back the cause to you, and to you as a mind, and not to you as a body functioning in a three-dimensional world. So, like I said, why am I sharing this? Well, if you see your, say, mystical development as an coming to know really what is real about you, then you see that it all has to do with experience, with mind experience, with heart-mind experience, direct communication with God. Like, what is that? Is there matter involved in that? No, not at all. Does that have anything to do with matter? No. Does it have to do with your mind? Yes, absolutely. With your heart and your being? Absolutely. With your soul? Yes, absolutely. But it has not to do with any kind of matter. And I think there's something really like valuable to recognize for yourself. So I'll continue. So that's the same idea, of course, with healing. If you think, as a human being, think that you live on a timeline which started when you were born, and you live your life, you're now so and so many years old, and you probably have another so and so many years to live. If you really think that that is your life, see, then you do the same thing. You think you can locate yourself, you think that you're in a certain time, in a certain place, and that your body is functioning as a certain object that has a certain history. Now, why is that not helpful for healing? Because in fact, in healing, there is not such thing as past. There's not such thing as a body going through its episodes and ending up in the grave, so to speak. No, that has nothing to do with what life is. So we come back, like, it's a real stretch, I understand. It's a real stretch. But I love to share it like this, because otherwise it wouldn't have any value to me. Like, no, I have to tell you this like it is, for like how I can share it with you, coming from the vision of like this perfect holy moment. So coming back to this moment then, and seeing that all the Father that the Father has is mine. Like, I can only experience that in this moment. I can only see that at work in this moment. You know what I'm saying? So that's important to recognize. So my wholeness, my completedness, my fulfillment can only be experienced in this moment. It will not happen another time. So that is then, if I think that there's an outcome to any of this in the future, I have to wait for a very long time, because it's not going to happen in that sense. It is not going to happen that way. But if I allow this moment to be complete and whole, then the healing can take place. And the healing not being anything more than coming back to the remembrance that this moment is the fullness, the fulfillment of our communication with God. Like, that is only happening now. So that's important. So in coming back to the idea of manifestation or reflection, like, if you look for God manifesting itself in form, then you also are looking for it where it cannot be found. If you see that God is in the reflections that you perceive, then it's like, yeah, absolutely, that's a possibility. It has never to do with the form, but it's a reflection of my communication with God that I see this reflected. And that means also I can be totally grateful for every part of it. Like I can be totally grateful for what I have received for myself and see that as an extension from my communication with God. See, and now we're talking about the practicality of mysticism. That is the basis of the practicality of mysticism. And then you don't even have to call it mysticism as such, you don't necessarily have to call it that way, because it then becomes basically the law of God. It's like it is working that way. It is not different. There is no other thing that works. So, and that is, see, I use this a lot in moments of healing, in moments where we come together to see that something can dissolve in this moment, seeing that an issue can just dissolve by itself in this moment, using the moment, the practicality of the direct communication happening in this instant, using that as a way to know where to go, to know what to say, to know how to respond, to know what to decide, or opening yourself up for something to be given you, remembering where your happiness is, feeling the rejuvenation of being in communication, feeling the healing occur, letting the light come to you. So when can the light come to you? It will not happen tomorrow. It's happening right now, or it's not happening. So becoming really aware of this present moment is then a possibility to open yourself up for all this communication that is possible. See, and that is, I think, a great part. And Joel writes about this too, and talks about it in many of his talks too. It's like there's a directness connected to it. It's like it's very practical. It's very, very useful in that sense. It is not trying to get something. No, it's being open to receive and seeing basically that there's infinite supply. See, an infinite supply does not mean that you have like tons of money in your bank account, but it is seeing that everything is given to you, that there's no restriction to that. That even if you had no money in the bank, that you still see that there's infinite supply, that there's all kinds of trials, as he mentions here in the book, or things that are happening in your life where you actually have the possibility to see that that is true. And I think that that's beautiful to take a look at. So, always referring back to the inner plane. So the other part then is, and we'll read that too. A realization. Oh yeah, here's Joel. The title is Realization on the Inner Plane Appears as Fulfillment on the Outer. The very highest mystical statement of truth that I know is, my kingdom is not of this world. I doubt that Jesus ever said anything of a more mystical nature than that. He could say later, I have overcome the world, because of his realization that my kingdom is not of this world. That statement immediately sets us free from the desire for person, place, thing, circumstance, and condition. It sets us free from the world of effects and makes it possible for us to live in conscious union with God, with cause, seeing that you are the effect of cause, of God. If there were, so the next paragraph, if we were to demonstrate effects by the millions, we still would be dealing with something that could turn to dust in our hands. But if once we achieve conscious union with cause, or God, then we have no further interest in things of this world except to enjoy as they come along. We then are still in the world but not of it. I myself find pleasure in many of the beautiful and enjoyable things of this world. But there's no longer an engrossing attachment to them. And that makes all the difference. That makes all the difference. See, and that's good. So the next part that is actually part of this chapter 2 is the idea of sacrifice of self. You know, leave your nets and leave everything behind to follow me. See, that is what we just did in our meditation, in fact. We left behind our nets. We left behind our ideas. We really opened up to come into the present moment together, to experience something different than our, say, daily affairs or our worldly ideas. So we entered into the inner plane and said, distracted ourselves from the outer plane for a moment. See, the great thing that we hear here is, in fact, that there is no sacrifice. It is just that you see that the things of the world have a whole different, attraction to you. You can still enjoy things, you can still, do all that, but you're not attached to it anymore. And if you are attached for a moment, you discover how painful it is. It's like, oh no, it's not worth it. I really don't want it. I just forgot to remember that I'm not of this world. Like I can enjoy it while it is here, but I will not be attached to it. It won't keep me here, so to speak. See, and that is, you have to be honest with yourself regarding that. Like, you might still be attached to some things or some persons and really thinking that that's not hurting you. But then the next moment you discover it does. And then you know, it's like, oh yeah, I know where to find this, of course. Like, my cause for happiness is in me. It is not outside myself. So I have to come back to my, say, inner self, so to speak, to come into communication again, to in contact really with myself, to see that there's my happiness. See, and then the interest, or what seems to be a drama just a moment ago, can really be alleviated, like can really be released in that sense. Like, oh, and this might take a little longer than just a moment for you to let go of this idea. And we all have our special items or things or persons that we have difficulty let go of, maybe even habits. And so just keep coming back to this then. Keep coming back to the fact that you can go within, that you can release all of that, that you can release all your attachments and enter into a new moment together where you don't pick up the old, but say, stay in the inspiration of the moment. Okay, so I want to read something from, that's a page, 2 pages before that. 195. Conscious union with God is oneness with all spiritual beings and idea. Conscious oneness with God is oneness with all spiritual being and idea. This is the miracle of mysticism. Your conscious oneness with God makes everything in this world available in the moment that you need it. Nobody can keep it away from you either. Nobody. But it is only true if you are following the spiritual path. Conscious oneness with God is mysticism. Conscious oneness with God constitutes your oneness with all spiritual being and every spiritual idea. So that's how Joel shares that with us. See, and your conscious oneness with God makes everything in this world available the moment that you need it. See, and this can increase the conflict in you. So here it literally says, in the moment that you need it. And now for sure that you have ideas about that you think, well, for what I actually need right now, for my awakening, for coming into a conscious communication with God, I need this and this and this. Or what I actually really need in my spiritual path right now is, and there comes your little list maybe with all kinds of ideas that you need right now. Or maybe in your daily life you really think that you need this and this and this. So see, what I just read, Joel shares with us, not is what you need, it is what you need. It is not what you think that you need. So that makes a difference, and it can save you some conflict. So to come to the place where you see that everything is given you in your awakening, everything is like perfectly aligned with your need, not defined by yourself, but given to you by God in this transformational process. Like, that is so perfectly orchestrated. That works really well. And if you give up your ideas about it, what you think you need, then you can actually be grateful. Otherwise you would miss it, because then you think that something is not working out for you. So that is, I think, brings up a lot of conflict in say, the ones that are on the spiritual path, thinking that, why am I not getting what I need? Like, well, you have no idea how perfectly that is orchestrated. Like, no, you literally receive everything you need for your transformation. But see, for that, not for anything else. And it's perfectly aligned with you and with the universe. So that's why Joel brings in, examples as finding to have transportation, using a plane, taking a plane to Los Angeles or whatever it is, and how well that fitted in, and that he could park his car and all of that. It's like, yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. That is really great, and I had these experiences too. So that is more to say, like, no, this is about the God communication. Yeah, you literally experience the God communication in a way that you can. That's why it speaks your language. That's why it speaks with your tongue. It speaks with your voice. See, not anyone else's voice. No, it's like it's coming to you in your very own way, so that you can understand that it's working like that. And I don't know if you heard that before. I once had, it was in the beginning that I started to practice this. I ended up in a city, running around, like not knowing where to go. And then for one moment stopping and coming to myself and asking, like, okay, well, where am I supposed to go? Because I can keep running in circles here, but I really want to know how to get to the place that I have to go to. And seeing that instantaneously, I look out of the window of the car, seeing that I'm actually in the street that I was looking for. And see, that in itself is not the occurrence. The occurrence is that it was direct communication. Suddenly I feel the connectedness with Source. And that was what mattered. It really doesn't matter where I am if I find the right street. No, it's not about that form. It is just that this form was, that this occurrence was given me in order to recognize that, yes, there is communication. Yes, there is, like, no, you're completely surrounded by the love of God no matter where you go. You can't miss it. Just stay right here. Don't go anywhere. Go within. Don't try to look for it in the world. Leave your nets behind. Leave all your ideas behind. And see that when you come with complete open hands, that everything is given you for your transformation. It's like, the recognition of the communication was the real miracle in that sense, the miracle of mysticism. So I love that. And I'm curious what examples you have where you actually are experiencing this too. Like, how is this coming to you? How is that working out in this moment? Are there any specific, say, places where you have conflict around that? It's like, I don't know if that is really working out the way that it should be, or that you have conflict with certain aspects of your life in terms of, well, there must be something like infinite supply, but I'm not seeing it. Like I live in kind of poverty. I don't have anything. Like I really don't know how to get out of this. Like I really have financial problems. Or how am I supposed to look at this then? See, and that is, so I'm curious to hear about that. And at the same time, it is like you are being brought back to the practice of going within, receiving like what is given to you in this moment, despite all your ideas you can have about it. And opening yourself up to have different experiences where you actually see that you're not the cause of the happenings, but that you're an effect of God, and see that reflected in your world, in your activities. So that's, I know it's a very short way of saying it. But that's the principle of it, and that's why I love to mention it to you. Okay, so the inner plane, I want to recite some of Joel's words. So this is on page 198. On the inner plane that is within your own being is where we touch God, where we touch the spiritual identity. Where we touch the spiritual identity of everything that appears as person, place, or thing. Touching the reality within makes it manifest to us in the outer, as friends, as family, as students, patients, activities, or even as books to read. It is a strange thing that every time I touch some new note within, somebody either gives me a book or recommends me one that makes me just a step further or corroborates some point I have already discovered on the inner plane. Furthermore, every time I touch a new sense within, it appears outwardly as some new friend or some new helper or some new kind of activity. Yeah, and that is, you recognize that too, isn't that great? Isn't it beautiful how that expands all the time? If I speak for myself, it's like in the last couple of days I came in touch with a certain book or a certain movie, even the wisdom of trauma, for instance. I came in touch with that. Then you see behind this one title there's a whole world. There are people that are connected to that actually want to share something with you. And, that this goes on and on. It's like suddenly you discover, you can even follow classes in that direction, or you can do this. Or it brings you into a whole different insight about yourself. And the more you're open to receive that for yourself, it really immediately starts to work too. Like sometimes I just need the title to inspire, literally to say stir up a certain field inside myself where actually healing can occur. Like with the idea of wisdom of trauma, it really was like that. I didn't have to see much of that movie. I was completely related to it. It resonated like immensely. And this is just as an example, but it resonated much, and it also stirred up, something for me for healing. And then it's like, oh, how beautiful that all works. You can completely trust that too. So it's connected to suddenly a person giving that to you, or sharing that with you, and seeing how incredibly beautiful that, like, it's complete as a whole package for you, given to you. It's like, here, let this sink in a little bit. Or this is really inspiring for you at this time. You will, if you receive this for yourself, that can be so helpful. But I'm always amazed by how complete that is, what is being offered, like how well that was put together, and how much love was given to it, and then it was brought to me to be shared. Just given to me and like that. So I recognize what Joel is saying here. And you see actually that's a continuous process. If you look at how much information comes to you, and some of the information is so highly resonant that it actually immediately activates something in you. And see, that is also the direct communication. It's like, that's energy, that is, moving, that is motion, that is activation, that is expansion, with all the opportunities within it. And also for you to even become more yourself, or closer to yourself, and healing yourself, coming even deeper into your inner plane, having a deeper experience of yourself. So yeah, there's so much given. So talking about the infinite supply, it's like you can experience it really like that too, in everything that's been given to you. So I'm really grateful for that. Crossing the River Jordan. See, there are all kinds of trials that come with this life. When you arrive at a place where your response to a call for help is as simple as, I really believe that God is the life of all being, and therefore any appearance of error must be nothing more or less than a hallucination, a temptation, coming to me to believe in a selfhood apart from God. I refuse to believe it. And are satisfied to let that be the treatment. Then when you remember that earlier forms of treatment you had used, there comes that period of hesitation and doubt. Such a period of transition is not easy. There comes a time when the members of your family begin to say that you must have gone crazy, and the members of your church tell you, well, you certainly have gone off the beam now. In one way or another, trials come to us, either through our own selves, through our family or our patients. There may even come for a time serious problems of health and supply, either our own or our patients. But we have to learn to stand fast. We have to learn to sit up nights with them. We have to learn to go away for 40 days too, even though it is not an actual 40 days, but only a figurative one. It is going away into the closet, into our sanctuary, and just praying our old heart out. Let this cup pass from me. But if it doesn't, I can take that too. See, all these things come to us on this way, the straight and the narrow. See, and he says, like, well, you gave up the human ways of salvation, so now you are, say, left to yourself in that sense to make the transition into your inner plane where the real salvation can be found. So transitioning from one to the other, from the outer to the inner salvation, so to speak, is something that is a learning curve that takes some time and that give you more and more opportunities. So by staying with our practice, by meditating, by taking time for ourselves, by giving ourselves a moment in the closet, or even giving ourselves a 40-day, maybe even of a couple of days, coming to yourself in terms of re-establishing like your lovely relationship with your inner being is a real necessity. It is like, it is not going to work any other way. You will have to do that. And that makes it easier for you to stay on this path and not fall into a trap of doubt or into a trial of confusion. So this is what I speak from, like, as coming from deep experience in this, is like the more, say, continuous you learn to give to this and rely on it, the easier it becomes to you. And it doesn't take away all the trials, but it does take away the longevity of suffering for you. It makes it shorter. You catch it earlier. And it says like, oh, wait a minute, I don't have to struggle. Oh, wait a minute, I don't need to be in pain. Oh, wait a minute, I have to go within instead of what I'm doing now. I really look for something outside myself. I'm literally going crazy for that. So that doesn't take that long anymore. By staying in this practice, by taking quiet times, by having our, say, 10-second meditations, or having our moments while in conversation with others, suddenly that we remember, it's like, oh my God, yes, there's such thing as a God, and it's in me, it's speaking through me, and I can rely on it. All right, so thank you for this. Thank you for being part in this class. This is the last class in this, in this series. And we're continuing, say in November, continuing with other classes. So I'll keep you posted. I will let you know what's going on. And thank you for everything. Thank you so much. Oh